Chapter 22. "OK," Sean said as the Impreza rolled up a gravel drive, small stones popping and crunching beneath the tyres, and the house loomed at the end. He's rich. The place was all old wood and red brick, with a stunningly landscaped garden behind it. There were discreet cameras at the corners, not big enough to spoil the looks, but enough to be noticed. All Sean knew was that they were somewhere near Guildford, which automatically meant money. The house, the grounds, and the collection of cars parked outside, Jags, BMWs, wanky sports cars, meant lots of it. Heaton hadn't gone into any detail about their mysterious host, despite repeated questions as they made their way up the M3 and round the M25. Now, for some reason, he laughed. "Yeah, he's rich." "Why is that funny?" "Because he's rich, you prick. That's his name." "Oh, for fuck's sake. He's, Heaton drummed his fingers on the wheel as he found a spot between the swishmobiles. The Impreza could hold its own there. The Matiz would have crept away behind the nearest tree and quietly shot itself. He's one of those guys who knows people. Lots of people. And he's best mates with every one of them. He wants something, he can grease it so it happens. You learn not to say no." "So we're going to be best mates too?" "Shit, no." Another laugh, this time more of a bark. "We're the workforce. But fuck that. He treats us decent, and above all, he's a customer. Got that?" "Got it." They climbed out, and Sean gave the house another appraising look. He didn't know what Heaton made from their deals, but even at $2,000 a pop, it would take a lot of illicit hauls on Salisbury Plain to pay for this place. It was way out of his league. "I'm gonna guess that, merchandise isn't here?" "Only a legal thing here is your haircut, mate. Come on." Heaton led him up the brick steps to the front door. It opened at his third knock to reveal what Sean could really only describe as a hard bastard. The man wasn't particularly tall, probably around 5'9", so Sean had a couple of inches on him. He wasn't particularly heavily built either, not like some nightclub bruiser pumped full of steroids. He wore a nice suit that was probably tailored, but the eyes that flitted across Sean's face were dead. Not a flicker of curiosity, or any kind of emotion. This guy, Sean knew with a certainty based on 2 seconds' acquaintance, would squish him without thought or care if he had to. "Josh Heaton and Sean Harker," said Heaton, "as ordered." The man stepped back to let them enter, then closed the door behind them. "This way," he said in a strangely soft voice, which made it sound all the more sinister. The hallway was thickly carpeted with wood panels on the walls. Now they were inside, Sean could hear the muffled sound of polite conversation dusted over with a sprinkling of laughter. The hard bastard led them through to a large room dotted with comfortable chairs and sofas, the walls covered in what Sean guessed was expensive artwork. A fire was burning in the ornate fireplace, even though it was the middle of a warm September, filling the air with a faint, sweet smell of wood smoke. There were around 20 or 30 people there, all well-dressed, all smiling, none looking in any way criminal. A tall man, late 40s or early 50s, tailored suit, sauntered over, holding out a hand. "Josh," he intoned in a deep, resonant voice. Then he turned to Sean. "And you must be the rather excellent young man who works with him." "Sean, yes?" Sean nodded, didn't speak. 30 seconds earlier he had felt comfortably clean and well-dressed in his usual civvy gear of jeans and T-shirt and leather jacket. But right now he was feeling like some homeless guy they'd dragged in off the street to have a laugh at. "A drink?" the man said, and gestured to a young woman circling the room with a silver tray and a number of filled, fluted glasses. Condensation on the sides was slick beneath Sean's fingers as he took one. He suppressed the urge to hold it up to the light and watch the little trails of bubbles as they streamed up from nowhere. He guessed that for the first time in his life he was holding a glass of champagne. Shit, I'm turning into a real knob. Crime really did pay, if you did it right. "There's plenty of food," the man continued. "Just help yourselves." He nodded to a far wall, where a long oak table was piled high with nosh in silver dishes. Sean took a sip from the glass and sneezed as the bubbles found their way up his nose. People drank this for pleasure. But still, champagne. The nosh was bloody decent too, especially the lobster. The only seafood Sean had ever eaten before was fried in batter with a side order of chips. This was 10 times richer, buttery, and with a whole range of flavours, none of them bad. About an hour and several more glasses of champagne later, Sean was onto his third plate of food and having the time of his life. Free food, head pleasantly tingly from the bubbly, and everyone treating him with respect. The one downside was that apart from Heaton, he was half the age of anyone else in the room. And there were no birds. No women at all, apart from the one serving the drinks, which seemed a bit lame, but hey, it wasn't his party. The man who had shaken his hand was the perfect host, insisting that Sean call him Rich instead of Richard, because I don't enjoy formality in a relationship like this, do you? He'd taken him around the room, introducing him to everyone. One of them asked suspiciously if he was Irish, but relaxed when he said he got his name because his mum fancied Sean Bean. "You make it sound so easy," Rich said as Sean finished telling, for the benefit of yet another interested party, the tale of how he and Heaton had scrumped the SA-80s. Which is actually rather shocking, wouldn't you agree? Sean shrugged. Not saying it was. He fought down a hiccup. Easy. He had a reputation to keep up. Easy. He'd like to see any of this lot try it. I mean, we planned it, you know, 'cause we got another hiccup, and he bit back a laugh. Skills. We recce'd the place first, sorted a hideout. Using your army skills to look after number one, said another man, this one middle-aged and a little portly. Something I approve of utterly. After all, it's not as though this bloody useless government of ours is going to, is it? There was a murmur of approval from around Sean. It was the first time since they'd arrived that he had heard anything other than general cordiality. We need more people like you, the man went on, turning to point at Sean. People with the balls to stand up, take control, and actually do something about what's happening in this country. Sean wasn't sure where the conversation was going. One minute he was bragging about nicking weaponry. Now he was in the middle of some kind of angry political discussion. It's not all that bad, he said, looking for the woman with the silver tray. The biggest problem we have facing us today, continued the fat man, ignoring Sean, isn't unemployment. It's worse than the financial crisis, or immigration, or family breakdown, or even gay marriage. The fuck's gay marriage got to do with it, Sean thought. He looked around for Tray Girl and stumbled because only one of his feet felt like moving. But the line about immigration made him look around again, and noticed something he hadn't clocked earlier because it hadn't seemed like a big deal. Everyone here was white. He had spent a year in a multi-ethnic world, and suddenly it seemed weird. What it is, the fat man barked, is those traitors, those so-called British citizens who grow up here, living off the state, using our hospitals and doctors and benefits and God knows what else, then have the audacity to claim the right to act as they like on our sovereign soil and kill our people. It's outrageous. All the politely swish upper-class rah-rah bollocks seemed to have evaporated. Terrorists are shits, Sean agreed. Tray Girl appeared in the corner of his eye and he swagged another glass, even though Heaton tried to take it off him. The Tidworth bomb, said a younger man with a moustache. 5 brave soldiers dead. You'd think that'd be enough of a wake-up call, but no. The government tackles the problem by cutting back on the armed forces even further. What is it going to take for them to open their eyes? The fury that had never quite gone away came surging up from inside. Sean drained his glass in one go. Me and Heaton, Josh, we were there. Our mate got blown up. He burped out some bubbles and tried to force his muzzy brain to come up with the right word. For some reason it wasn't as easy as usual. For wanksters. They should be hanged, said the older man. Summary courts, no clever lawyers to get 'em off to re-offend. It was a car bomb, wasn't it? Said the man with the moustache. Inside the camp, which means the terrorists probably had an inside man. Sean snapped round at this. Hey, that was the mate I was talking about. It was her car. Sorry, said the man, raising a hand in defence. But I'm just saying what I heard. You never know, do you? They're everywhere, these people. like a bloody rash. "Clarkey wasn't a fucking terrorist, mate," Sean said. The man with the moustache narrowed his eyes at him. "I'm not your mate," he said. "And all I'm saying is that we need to be careful, vigilant. They could be anywhere, couldn't they? They've infiltrated the Iraqi army, so why not ours?" "Because our soldiers aren't terrorists," Sean said. "They're the bravest bunch of bastards I've ever met." Moustache Man laughed then, his voice like a dagger of ice. "Wake up," he said. "They're everywhere. For all we know, you're one." He laughed again, clearly enjoying his joke. But Sean wasn't laughing. Him, a terrorist? Who did this posh twat think he was? The bastard. The utter wanking bastard. He gave no warning. One moment he was calmly resting his empty champagne glass back on the silver platter. The next, he'd nutted the mustachioed bastard in the face to split his nose. And now, with him floundering on the floor, he was going in for more. "So I'm a terrorist, am I?" he yelled. "Is that what you think? Fuck do you know, you twat? Nothing, that's what. Hanging out with all your wanker pals, talking bollocks about what's going on. When what do you actually know? Fuck all is what. Fuck all." He was reaching down to drag the man back to his feet, just so he could have another go, when something like steel pincers grabbed his left arm and jammed it up into the centre of his back. He tried to stand up straight, and white-hot agony fizzed along his arm through the champagne bubbles. His arm was held at an angle which made it plain that bones would snap unless he moved exactly as directed. His eyes focused on the mirror across the room. He could see himself bent forward with the hard bastard right behind him, and the guy's eyes were deader than ever. Heaton ignored the sight of a comrade being attacked and made a beeline for their host. "Rich, I'm so sorry," he said. "Look, I mean, he's a good lad. He's just not used to—" "Oh, go fuck yourself," Sean shouted. Somewhere in the haze of champagne bubbles in his head was the vague idea that this was not good, but screw that. "Tash twat reckons I'm a terrorist, and Clarkey was in on it, and blew herself up." The man with the moustache was now back on his feet, nursing his face with a napkin. "Harker, you're pissed," Heaton shouted back. "Can't be pissed," Sean protested indignantly. "It's only champagne, for Christ's sake." He tried to move, and pain shot through his hand and arm again. "And get your fucking Doberman off me!" "Doberman," laughed Rich. "I rather like that. What do you think, Malcolm?" Despite the pain, Sean laughed. "Malcolm? You're kidding." Another twist. More pain. Sean doubted his arm would go much further before giving way completely. He had to shut up. Rich turned to Heaton. "What an entertaining young man he is, this partner of yours." "That's one way to look at it," Heaton replied. Sean caught the sharp glance he shot at him. "I think I'm going to like him," Rich said. "As long as he sticks to the soft stuff." Heaton agreed, with another dagger glare at Sean. The pain in Sean's arm was penetrating the anaesthetic effect of the champagne. "Look," he said, calming a little. He tried to match Rich's rah-rah voice. "Would you mind calling Malcolm off? I didn't mean to lose it." "Let him go, Malcolm." The pain in the pincer grip vanished immediately. Sean staggered free and stood up straight. "Sometimes," Rich said, turning to him, "actions speak louder than words, wouldn't you agree?" Sean said nothing. He focused on Rich and bit back on a vom-flavoured burp as his host continued. "Sometimes," he said, "no matter how loudly you shout, how clearly you put across your point of view, no one takes the blindest bit of notice. It is then, as you just demonstrated, Sean, that you have to act to make someone listen, and sometimes that involves doing things you wouldn't normally do or indeed approve of. Don't worry about the law. Just get above it." Sean had no idea what Rich was on about, didn't care. He wanted to get back to barracks. The room was boiling hot and he was sweating freely. In fact, he suddenly realised getting out of this room and into the toilet in the next 30 seconds would be a really good idea. Rich walked up to Sean, leaned in close. Sean had given up on trying to focus. Rich was a man-shaped blur. "I like you," Rich told him. "I like your verve. Yes, that will do, I think. Verve. Now, oh, Christ, Josh, get him out of here." Sean dropped to his hands and knees as his guts heaved, and 7 glasses worth of champagne and a lot of chewed-up lobster spewed out over Rich's thick, expensive, and very absorbent rug. The journey back to barracks was silent.